Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and that will promote the interest of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en al ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikalela letwe leto na bantu balu, umusile ukulungu kwepondo letu, nkosi sikalela i Afrika, tina abantwano bayo, kokela inkokeli zayo, yeniki uxolo i Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Order. Before we proceed, I would like to make some comments about the logistical arrangements for this sitting. Today's sitting shall be governed by the standing rules, and instances where the rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. Honourable members, the quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are as provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules. The Sergeant at Arms will be recording members' attendance. Honourable members who are present in the chamber and via Microsoft Teams have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. Honourable members, unless there is an indication of unanimous concurrence, voting will be confined to members present in the House and who are entitled to cast their votes in accordance with our standing rules. Members who are considered to be out of order by the presiding officer will have their microphones muted and will be called to order. When an honourable member wishes to raise a point of order, such an honourable member may address the presiding officer as normal, but must mute his or her microphone when he or she has completed speaking. Honourable members, you are also kindly requested to ensure that your microphones are unmuted when I recognise you and to mute your microphones when you have finished speaking. Honourable members, for the purposes of the sitting, language interpreting services are available by using the devices at your disposal. Honourable members are reminded that no interjections are permitted during these hybrid sittings, and to this end I wish to draw your attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. The Secretary and administration will also ensure that there is dedicated technical support at all times during the sitting. Honourable members, we will now proceed with the business of the House, and we will move straight on to interpellations in terms of Rule 157. And I recognise the Honourable Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety, Minister Marais.
Speaker, thank you for the interpellation to Honourable Van Minnen. The Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety derive oversight powers over the police from Section 206 of the Constitution. The province has no oversight authority in respect of the South African National Defence Force. However, the Minister may exercise powers over the South African Police Service and the municipal police when they are deployed together with SANDF. It is important to note that the Western Cape government did not call for this deployment. From the outset, we expressed reservations about the deployment of the army into policing environments, particularly because of the governance and accountability challenges it creates. Unlike the SAPS, which falls within established civilian oversight structures at provincial level, the SANDF operates under a completely different command and accountability framework. This creates limitations and risks when it comes to ensuring transparency, monitoring conduct, and holding soldiers accountable for their action within communities. Our concern has always been that a significant budget allocated to this SANDF deployment could have been more effectively invested in capacitating the SAPS, which has the constitutional and legislative mandate to perform policing functions. Strengthening detective services, increasing visible policing, improving forensic capacity, and filling critical SAPS vacancies would provide more sustainable long-term crime-fighting outcomes. In addition, more resources should have been directed towards crime prevention programs aimed at addressing the root causes of violence and gangsterism. investment of those funds directed to the SANDF into community-based interventions, youth development initiatives, substance abuse programs, and violence prevention partnerships would have had a more sustainable impact. Thank you.
Baie dankie, agbare minister. I recognize the Honourable Van Minen. Before I do so, Honourable Adams, is that a point of order?
Speaker, I rise to request to address a matter of urgent public importance affecting the residents of George and the Garden Route following the severe storm damages that is occurring there.
Okay, honourable member, I will give you an opportunity after we've completed this interpellation, in terms of the rules, because I'll just have to check with the table staff if notice was indeed provided, and if not, to follow the process if in terms of the rules, what you've just raised. But if with your concurrence and that of the House, can we please conclude interpellation 1? Honourable Van Minen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since April 2026, more than 170 people have been shot in our communities. On average, 5 people are killed every single day. This is a crisis. It's a clear sign that SAPS is failing the people it is meant to protect. We were told that interventions were working. We were told that plans were in place. Yet even with Operation Prosper's first month yielding 315 arrests, the bloodshed continues. Arrests mean little if they do not translate into safer streets, and arrests mean very little if they do not result in convictions. Our communities in the Cape Flats are still living in fear. The deployment of the SANDF was meant to be a turning point, a force multiplier to support SAPS. But what has it achieved? The killings have not stopped. The violence has not slowed. Instead, this deployment has exposed the absence of any coherent, sustainable strategy to combat gang violence. SAPS continues to rely on reactive policing and short-term interventions. There is no clear plan to remove dangerous criminals from the streets, and as a result, perpetrators act with impunity, knowing they're unlikely to face consequences. And we must ask, where are the resources that were promised? The Joint Standing Committee of Defence was told to expect 800 soldiers. That number dropped to 547. Today, it appears fewer than 250 soldiers have actually been deployed to Cape Town, one of the most dangerous gang hotspots in the country. Honourable Speaker, the people of the Western Cape deserve better. They deserve a police service that is proactive, strategic and accountable. They deserve safety, not empty promises. That is why greater oversight is not optional. It's essential. We must demand transparency, proper planning, and measurable results from SAPS, because without accountability, the cycle of violence will continue, and our communities will keep paying the price. Speaker, through you, we need to know how frequently does SAPS report on crime trends, operational effectiveness, and police conduct in hotspot areas. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the question before us is not simply about deployment. It's about oversight, accountability, and whether militarization is being mistaken for safety. The Western Cape, particularly in the Cape Flats, has long been subjected to cycles of intensified and militarized policing. From Operation Fiela to Operation Lockdown and ongoing deployments of the SANDF, we've seen this approach before. Each time we are told it will curb gang violence, and there may be short-term declines, but none of these interventions have delivered any sustainable safety. In fact, Operation Fiela was heavily criticized for targeting vulnerable communities, particularly foreign nationals, raising serious human rights concerns. That is not safety, it is the erosion of dignity and trust. And we must be cautious. Around the world, we've seen what happens when governments lean too heavily on militarized responses. In El Salvador, the use of the military to combat gangs was accompanied by states of emergency, the suspension of due process, and widespread fear, including amongst innocent people. That is not a model we should drift toward. So the question remains, what is the real extent of this department's oversight, when SANDF members are deployed in the province, because oversight cannot mean passive observation. Provinces already have limited authority over national defense, and without active monitoring, transparency, and accountability mechanisms, we risk creating a dangerous gap. A gap where rights can be compromised, where communities feel occupied rather than protected, and where the root causes of violence, poverty, inequality, and spatial injustice remain ignored. Soldiers are not a substitute for social policy. If oversight is to mean anything, the department must demand accountability, protect constitutional rights, and ensure that the safety interventions are sustainable and not just visible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Heron. Honourable Ngensu.
Speaker, we find it interesting that a senior member of the DA in the caliber of Member Van Minen could be preoccupied with whether the MEC has oversight over the army, instead of confronting the real crisis facing our people in Cape Town. This question reflects what the DA represent, an obsession with power than commitment to serving and protecting our people. And that is why we don't believe that the MEC is correct when he says the deployment of the army represents the crisis of governance. That indicated that she is aloof and she does not appreciate what is currently obtaining on the ground. And of course, they do not relate. Speaker, the constitution of this country is clear on oversight over the army, as that rests with the president, as that rests with the minister and parliament, full stop. The provincial government must know its lane and stop attempting to exploit the crisis of violent crime for political grandstanding. A serious and accountable government would be asking how it is strengthening and complementing the joint efforts of the police and the army, not posturing about authority it does not have. What this government should be doing to complete the efforts on the ground. For all to know, when the president deployed the army, the ANC will support the decision. We're not oblivious of the limitations of the deployment of the army. We understood the limitation. And that's the reality that the people in the Cape Flats continue to be shot till today. Violent crime undermines the joint police and army efforts because this government of the DA do not want to appreciate that violent crime is embedded in the chronic crisis of underdevelopment, poverty, and unemployment. Thus, crime has become an economy for survival in this province. The big question, what is your government doing about the root cause of crime? To the DA, to the neoliberal DA, oversight is not about chasing soldiers. It is about delivering a coordinated wall of government response that tackles the conditions.
Honourable Member, your time has expired. Thank you very much. Thank you. I recognise the Honourable Van Minen.
Honourable Speaker, circular arguments do really not assist people on the ground. And we're told that the deployment of SANDF is a force multiplier in the fight against crime. But a force multiplier for what, exactly, if the system is failing to secure convictions? Because policing does not end with arrests, it ends with convictions. In the Western Cape, we're facing a crisis not only in the streets, but in our justice system. There are approximately 290,000 active cases in the province. That is 290,000 incidences where justice is delayed and too often denied. And when we look at conviction rates, the picture is very alarming. In Kraaifontein, for example, the conviction rate is sitting at 64%. And in Mitchell's Plain, one of the most dangerous areas, it's 50%, which if a negative means that 50% of all the incidents do not end in conviction. So what does this really mean? It means that half of those accused of serious crimes are not successfully prosecuted. It means they're cycling back into the communities and the victims are left without justice. And it means fear continues to dominate daily life. The South African Police Service may make arrests and the SANDF may support the operations. But if cases collapse, if investigations are weak, and if prosecutions fail, we're not winning the fight. We cannot police our way out of crime without fixing the system that follows the entire criminal justice process. We need stronger case building, better coordination between SAPS and prosecutors, and a justice system that ensures criminals are not just arrested, but convicted. And that's without going into the whole issue of the prisons, incidentally. Honourable Speaker, if we're serious about safety, we must be serious about convictions, because only permanent convictions will keep dangerous criminals off our streets. Anything less is not justice. It is merely a revolving door, and our communities deserve better. I thank you.
Baie dankie aan die agbare lid. I recognize the Honourable Minister, Minister Maree.
Thank you, Speaker. Command and control Operation Prosper remains with SAPS and is managed at a national level, which presents a challenge in terms of direct provincial oversight. To address this gap, engagements are underway with national authorities to establish appropriate reporting and monitoring mechanisms. In the interim, the Western Cape government continues to exercise its oversight role over SAPS in the province through existing measures. General Patekile and his team will give feedback at each cabinet and also at the Provincial Safety Council. Beyond oversight, the Western Cape government continues to strengthen programs to build community resilience, support at-risk youth, strengthen neighbourhood watches and community policing structures, and improve access to social and economic opportunities in vulnerable areas. These efforts are essential to reducing the conditions in which gangs and organised crime are able to thrive. Ultimately, the SANDF deployment is seen as a temporary measure rather than a sustainable solution to gang violence. The Western Cape government continues to call on national government to properly resource and capacitate SAPS in the province, including strengthening specialized units such as crime intelligence, the anti-gang unit, and detective services. In addition, there is a continued call for the expansion of certain policing powers to capable municipal authorities, which would enable more responsive and locally informed policing. Sustainable progress will depend on a capable policing system, effective intelligence-led operations, and strong coordination across all spheres of government. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that brings us to the end of interpellation 1 as printed on the question paper. Before I recognize the Minister of Infrastructure, Honourable Adams, I have confirmed with the table staff that in fact we did not receive your request as stipulated in terms of the rules. If I can refer you to Rule 143 and 144, the request that you have now made in the House must be done in writing at least 1.5 hours before the sitting to me. So in terms of the rules, I cannot allow you on that point of order. With that being said, we move on to interpellation 2, and I recognize the Minister of Infrastructure, Minister Simmers.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and I do thank Member Heron for the question. Yes, traditional BNG housing numbers have declined over time, but the real question is why, and more importantly, what we are doing about it. The first reason is both obvious and very simple. The cost of building a house today is far higher than it was in 1994, and grant funding has not kept pace with this increased costs. Cement, steel, labour, transport, municipal connections, environmental compliance, and bulk services have all increased dramatically. So the same grant allocation that built more units decades ago now actually builds fewer. The second reason is that well-allocated land has become scarcer and more expensive, especially in cities where people need housing closest to jobs, schools, and transport. The third reason is that bulk infrastructure is under severe pressure. You cannot hand over a house where there is no sewer capacity, no electricity network, no roads, and no water connections. The fourth reason is the fact that the Western Cape is growing faster than many other provinces because people vote with their feet. Families continue moving here in search of opportunity, better governance, and safer communities. Demand rises thus every year. These four reasons are both obvious and very easy to demonstrate. But now, Mr. Speaker, let us speak honestly about another major cause: land invasions. When land earmarked for housing is invaded unlawfully, housing projects are delayed, beneficiaries lose opportunities, taxpayers fund security instead of homes, and courts and law enforcement must intervene before construction can proceed. One illustration will suffice, and it's Syferfontein in George. A project earmarked for housing opportunities, though the one portion of the site was disrupted when approximately 500 sites were illegally occupied. That is not only an abstract policy debate. This involves real families prevented from receiving homes because of the unlawful actions of other people, mostly who do not qualify for a housing opportunity. So when some members ask why delivery slows, they must also ask who benefits when public housing land is illegally occupied. Honourable Speaker, this brings me to a most important consideration, namely the extent to which housing delivery has actually changed. Government can no longer measure success only by counting detached BNG houses on the urban edge. Today, we deliver service sites, title deeds, social housing, affordable rental stock, mixed-use developments, informal settlement upgrading, and well-located developments closer to economic opportunity. In the last financial year alone, the Western Cape delivered thousands of title deeds and service sites, while expanding catalytic projects such as Conradi Park and other mixed-income developments. That is not less delivery, that is smarter delivery. Honourable Heron may prefer a 1994 housing model. In the Western Cape, we prefer a 2026 housing solution. We choose ownership over stagnation, density over sprawl, opportunity over symbolism, and delivery over slogans. And let me conclude with this, Honourable Speaker and members of the House. If land invasions, extortion, and infrastructure sabotage were removed from our system, more families would already have keys in their hands today. In the Western Cape, we thus remain committed to building not just houses, but sustainable communities where people can live with dignity. I thank you.
Thank you, Agbare Minister. I recognize the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it is the Democratic Alliance who is consistently referring to delivery since 1994, and for the Minister to be referring to Conradi as an example of progress. The House needs to be reminded that Conradi was conceived and delivered when Helen Zille was the Premier of this province more than 7 years ago. But we have to be honest about this bragging around the 1994 to 2026 cumulative numbers. They are actually a sleight of hand designed to mask decline. But when you strip away the spin and look at what is actually being built every year, a very different and very deeply troubling picture emerges. Between 1994 and 2005, this province delivered an average of 8,200 BNG housing units per year. And that was already not enough. But instead of improving, scaling, or accelerating delivery, the system has gone backwards. Between 2006 and 2026, delivery dropped to approximately 5,100 units per year. It's not just a technical adjustment or minor dip, it is a 62% collapse in housing delivery. Housing delivery hasn't just declined, it's practically fallen off a cliff. In 2019-2020, the province delivered 8,038 BNG homes. By 2024-2025, that number had crashed to just 3,046. A collapse that has happened while housing need has exploded, while waiting lists grow longer, and when informal settlements continue to expand across the province. The gap between need and response is not closing, it's widening in real time. And yet we're told to be reassured by talk of land releases, catalytic projects, future pipelines. But people cannot live in pipelines or in announcements, and a press release is not a roof. The truth is simple, these grand plans are not translating into any housing delivery at scale, and certainly not at the scale required by the crisis we're currently living in. But this is not only a question of how many houses are built, it's also about where they are built and who continues to be pushed to the margins. Because while the province occasionally points to well-located projects like Conradi as proof of progress, these remain the rare and incomplete exception and not the rule. The dominant pattern is unchanged. Poor families are still relocated to the periphery, far from jobs, transport, schools, and opportunity. In other words, instead of dismantling the apartheid spatial logic, housing delivery is too often reproducing it brick by brick. So we're left with a dual failure. Fewer houses are being built each year, and too many of those houses reinforce the geography of exclusion rather than breaking it. And that is the real record, not the cumulative totals, not the speeches, and not the projections. And it raises a hard question that we can't avoid.
Honourable Heron, your time is up. You'll have another opportunity.
Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Wessels.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, it seems some members lives in a vacuum, isolated from the realities faced by many South Africans. Since 1994, The ANC has governed this country, and it's under their leadership that South Africans have endured corruption, economic decline, rising living costs, and increasing violence, all of which have placed immense pressure on housing delivery despite political will to build. However, Honourable Speaker, despite these challenges and despite budget constraints that was caused by ANC failures for more than 30 years, the DA-led Western Cape government has continued to deliver. Since 2009, the Western Cape has created more than 213,000 housing opportunities, benefiting more than 850,000 people. In the Western Cape, we continue to build homes despite difficult circumstances. So, Honourable Speaker, perhaps the real question to Minister Simmers should be, what are the different mechanisms that the department has implemented to provide housing solutions in the Western Cape? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Honourable Lekker.
Honorable Speaker, a lie is often repeated by the DA in this House and in the city of Cape Town, that this province has built more houses than any other province since 1994. That statement in isolation is true, but the DA must not claim easy victories. That achievement belongs to nobody else but the ANC. It is the ANC that prioritized housing delivery when it governed this province and ensured that our people accessed shelter with dignity. When the ANC governed year after year without fail, we delivered over 25,000 housing opportunities. Under the DA, that number has declined drastically to well below those levels. This is not accidental. It is not just a capacity issue. It is a deliberate policy choice. Equally concerning is the pace of delivery today, with a housing backlog of 697,000 in the province, of which 440,000 plus is in the Cape Metro. The scale of this crisis is undeniable, yet delivery rates just over 3,000, breaking new ground houses in the last financial year, mean that at this pace, it will take generations to meet the existing demand. This is not merely a policy failure, it is a moral one. The slow pace of delivery, coupled with the failure to release well-located land, reflects a broader unwillingness to confront inequality. Instead, the DA advances a neoliberal agenda, handing over land to private developers while the working class is pushed to the margins. The consequence is clear: fewer houses, longer waiting lists, and deepening inequality. If our people want houses, they must rise, organize, and vote this DA government out of power. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Lekker. I recognize the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker. What I was about to ask, Speaker, is if this approach is capable of delivering either the scale or the spatial transformation that justice demands. The decline in housing delivery cannot be treated as simply a technical or a grant funding problem. It is inseparable from how the province handles money, capacity, and crucially, its own political choices. Let's be clear about the funding reality. BNG is financed entirely through national grants. These funds are ring-fenced, purpose-specific, and must be spent on housing delivery. So when the province speaks about allocating funding for housing, what is actually being described is the routine spending of money that has already been transferred from the national government for that exact purpose. There's no meaningful additional provincial investment stepping in to expand delivery, no supplementary fiscal push to close the gap, no serious attempt to accelerate outcomes through provincial resources, just the pass-through of grant funding framed as if it represents proactive provincial government. This matters because it raises a blunt and uncomfortable question. If delivery is already declining under a system where the primary funding stream is guaranteed, then what exactly is failing? Money, capacity, or political will? And the answer cannot be reduced to funding alone. Everywhere money is spent, implementation is weak, uneven, increasingly unable to keep pace with demand. Rising needs collides with shrinking annual delivery, and the system simply does not respond to the scale required. The result is not just backlog, it's structural stagnation. But the deeper issue is not only how much is delivered, or even how efficiently. It is what kind of city or province is being produced through that delivery. Because housing is never just about shelter. Location determines everything that follows. A well-located home is not just a roof, it is access. Access to jobs, to transport, to schools, and to economic networks. It reduces the daily cost of survival and expands the horizon of opportunity. Over time, these advantages compound, Speaker. They shape mobility, income, and life chances. Peripheral housing does the opposite. So when peripheral delivery becomes the norm, it's not a neutral planning outcome. It is the quiet reproduction of spatial injustice. And that is the uncomfortable pattern we are left with. A system where annual delivery is declining, while the limited housing that is delivered continues to reinforce the very geography of exclusion it is supposed to dismantle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Heron. I recognize the Minister of Infrastructure, Minister Simmers.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, indeed, and through you to the Honourable Member Lecker, who now boasted about the ANC's number of units they built. Just a friendly reminder, from 2009 until 2013, your Honourable Comrade Tokyo Sitwale was the Minister of Human Settlements. And in a question to Parliament, he indicated that for the period 1999 until...
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. There's a point of order. Member Side, is that a point of order?
Yes, Honourable Speaker. Can
What
the
the-
Honourable Minister please speak through you? Even though he's online, he must still speak through you.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, please address me and not the member directly.
Apologies, Honourable Speaker. Through you, Honourable Speaker, to Member Lecker. Again, Tokyo Sekwale was the National Minister of Housing and Human Settlements from the period 2009 till 2013. In a question to Parliament in 2011, when asked how many substandard houses needed to be rectified, he indicated for the period 1999 until 2009. Remember, this is the period the ANC governed the Western Cape, where they were pushing out quantity instead of quality housing opportunities. In excess of 1.3 billion rand had to be budgeted to rectify effectively substandard houses built for our much needed people at the cost of the quality that they so much needed to address their dignity. So instead of quantity, quality is actually what the members should have asked about. In terms of member vessels, indeed, we have expanded since 2019 our focus on affordable housing and partnerships. We have been able to, not just through the various grants which the Honourable Member Heron refers to, but also utilizing our own departmental funds, DA-initiated policy approaches to our focus on affordable housing. And key examples of that does exist, and I can provide that in writing to the House, where we have utilized own funding to showcase an alternative delivery capacity and capability in terms of human settlements in a functional and capable state with capable and functional municipalities as partners. But it's quite crucial that the Honourable Member Heron and the members of the House, through you, the Honourable Speaker, understands. In 1994, to build a house, the subsidy was 7,500 rand, and it built houses of 27 square meters. If you go to Laingsburg, you can see many of these old houses along the N1 corridor. In 2004, 2005, the cost then increased to 14,102 rand per unit. Again, the sizes of the houses were 27 square meters. In 2009, 2010, under Tokyo Sekwale, we saw the introduction of a 40 square meter house, and the subsidy then increased to 55,706 rand. We then further saw between 2014 and 2015 the introduction of standards, given the inferior quality the African National Congress built through the RDP program across all 9 provinces, which saw the cost to ensure that the houses are of quality in nature. The subsidy then increased to 110,947 rand. That increase then in the financial year 2018-19 to a subsidy of 116,867 rand. It remained like that for nearly almost 7 years. In 21-22, we then started seeing incremental increases on the subsidy to 183,920 rand. I beg your pardon. In 21-22 to 183,920 rand per unit, which is the current subsidy. But now that the House, keep in mind, all this time the cost per unit increased, but the subsidy did not keep pace. So as much as we saw an increase in the subsidy quantum, the outputs ultimately would never keep a pace because the houses got bigger and the funding allocated ultimately needed to ensure that the 40 square meter houses, quality houses, was built. I do need to add to that as well, Honorable Speaker. And in conclusion, Honorable Speaker, we need to understand that as the costs of raw material increases, no matter how much grant funding we receive, we will always be unable to address the need immediately. Hence, our approach, working with the private sector, and later in this year, we will announcing a Western
Honourable
Cape unique
Minister, your time
approach
has
to
expired. Thank
addressing
you very
our
much.
infrastructure needs, including
Thank you very
the
much,
housing
Honourable
market. Thank you.
Minister. Can I please ask that Minister be muted? Thank you very much, honourable members. That brings us to the end of interpellations. We now move on to questions in terms of Rule 202. Honourable members, I just want to alert the House that we will first deal with question 2 on the question paper as question standing over from Thursday, the 16th of April 2026, as agreed by the House. I recognize the Minister of Social Development, Minister Lont.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The question to Honourable Christians. However, before I want to start, Honourable Speaker, I just want to take a moment to convey my condolences to the family of Lauren Fredericks, who tragically lost her life yesterday. She was out the entire night assisting those people that were evacuated. And when they came back to the office, it was a freak accident and she lost her life. But to all the frontline service personnel, also all the DSD personnel, our thoughts and prayers are with you in this time. Thank you so much. Honourable Christians, thank you so much for the question. Your question A, or question 2, part A, is how many state-funded rehabilitation beds are currently available in the Western Cape? The response to this is that the Western Cape Department of Social Development funds and supports 5 inpatient treatment facilities for 689 subsidized bed spaces. This is at a cost of 18,533,829 rand for the 2026-27 financial year. Part B of the
Honourable
question.
Minister, before you continue with Part B, can you please speak to me and not to the member?
I will do so, Honourable Speaker, and then through you to the Honourable Member. You see, I'm a man now. You want me to multitask, Chair. Let me just get my space. Part B is, what are the waiting periods for admission? Waiting periods are kept as short as possible through an open cycle admission system, allowing clients to be admitted without fixed intake dates. Most centers do not have waiting periods beyond the 6 to 8 week cycle intake dates. The department works closely with facilities and monitors admissions and occupancy to prevent delays and ensure timely access to treatment. Then part C of the question, it is what preventative programs are being rolled out at community level to curb youth addiction? Preventative programs are actively implemented at community level. The department currently funds 27 non-profit organizations that deliver a range of community-based services that include early intervention and aftercare support. Programs are implemented by 11 funded school-based organizations with a focus on providing services to learners, thereby ensuring accessibility within educational settings. These organizations facilitate brief interventions and enable early identification of substance use among youth. Educators are supported in the referral process, contributing to a coordinated and comprehensive service delivery framework for young people. School-based psychosocial support programs delivered by qualified social workers form a key component of this approach and provide learners with access to information, counseling, and emotional support. They also incorporated peer mediation and conflict resolution training, equipping young people with essential life skills to manage challenges.
Thank you very much. Before I recognize the Honourable Christians, Honourable members, I just wish to remind you that you need to give me an indication if you want to ask a follow-up question. I have noted Honourable Christians, Honourable Kaiser Philander, Honourable Lekker So there's 4 opportunities, and I'm doing, I probably should have done this in the beginning. There's 4 opportunities, members. If you want to ask a question, the first question or the first opportunity to pose a follow-up question automatically is afforded to the member who posed the initial question. So there's 3 additional opportunities on any question. Honorable Christians, Honorable Kaiser, Philander, and Honorable Lacker in that order.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for the reply. We know that drugs is a major problem. Is there any monitoring when a person enters a facility and leaves? Is there any monitoring, or that the person don't come back? How do you monitor that? Because there's a lot of money going into it, and I know of a lot of people, that don't make it. They leave and they go back into drugs. So that's a major concern, the person falling back into that. So the money goes in. So I just want to know, is there programs at least or some accountability to make sure that these guys stays on the right road? Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, before I recognize you again, just to remind members, you are allowed to ask 1 follow-up question, and there's no need to motivate your question. There's only 60 minutes allocated for question time for this section, so I'm trying to guide you so that you can get the maximum opportunity to ask your questions. Honorable Minister, I recognize you.
Yeah, Honorable Christians, I mean, that's the nature of fighting the scourge, is that we are trying our best with its community interventions or inpatient treatments that you do not have the relapse, but you do find that. And whenever there is somebody that relapse, it is something that affects the individual, their families, the people that work with them as well. So, I mean, we will be able to give you that stats. That's more statistical question that you have asked me, and I don't have that on me now, but you're welcome to submit a written question, and then we can give you the relapse rate in our facilities. I mean, you are also, and I know you didn't ask that, but we have the issue of non-registered facilities, and that is something that we are actively working towards, firstly, to get facilities compliant, but those that are resistant to that, to actually go the full legal route to close down some of those facilities. But if you can submit that to me, that statistical question in writing, I'll get my team to get back to you. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Kaiser Philander.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Minister, thank you very much for the response. So my initial question was based on part C of the question, but Minister quite comprehensively expanded on community-based prevention. My question, therefore, through you, Speaker, to the Minister, are there any plans to increase the number of state-funded rehabilitation beds or facilities in the next 2 financial years? Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Honourable Philander, we really try, and I mean, you are well aware, we fund 1,172 NGOs to the value of 1.19 billion rand. And I'm acting this week for the Minister of Finance as well. I wish I could change my budget now, but it is something that we continuously advocate for. And we've across the board got a 4% increase, which is above inflation for the support of the NGOs. But our first priority is to make sure that the organizations we support now, they stay alive, they keep thriving as an organization. Obviously, we are also trying to see where we can expand, where we can take hands. With the launch of the Cape Care Fund, we are now trying to look for alternative sources. We have that big contract that was signed now with the Cape Town Science Centre that gives a cash injection. But as I said from the beginning, we need to make sure that the organizations we currently fund and support, that we keep them afloat. But we're always open for ideas and suggestions and finding new ways. We've also found that community interventions are cheaper than inpatient facilities. So that is the first one that we're trying to do now, but there's a definite need. So that's something that we present to the standing committee as well, what we are currently doing. And when the resources become available, we will obviously look at the needs across the province, where the highest pressures are and what we can do then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Acker.
Thank you, Speaker. Maybe I must ask the Minister as to how are the rehabilitation beds distributed across the districts?
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister.
So that is a question that I can provide you in writing for. What I have said in the first one, we've got the 5 inpatient treatment facilities that provide 689 subsidized bed spaces. But if you want the exact locations of those, we can quickly pull that for you off the database. It is information that is freely available. It was in our annual reports as well, but I'll ask my office to pull it and send it through to Honorable Acker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. There's another last opportunity, and that's Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, if you can tell me some of these people that goes to the centers and they're successful, do you use some of them as role models to go out and help with this problem, drug problem that we have? Do you have any programs like that where you can use people that overcame the drugs and to go out in communities and assist? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Colleagues, I'm more than happy to always answer these questions, but I'm going to try and quickly find the gentleman's name. But I visited Ramot, and there's a gentleman that gave his testimony and is now a motivational speaker. And I think he's run the Comrades Marathon as well. And we like to enjoy, and I think you'll probably see it more and more being done in the department, that we start telling these stories. Because quite often you just hear the bad news, but there's also those success stories. And the one that immediately pops up is the gentleman from Ramot and how he's now running to create awareness. And he also tells the story of how when he went through it and he had to go back to work, the struggles that it is. He used to work in the hospitality industry. And in the hospitality industry, you've got the access to the alcohol quite easily. And how he had to overcome all of those challenges. So yes, I could just give you a short answer, but there's more and more of those stories. There's a young girl in one of our foster kids now, a 5th-year medical student. There's one of the young boys that come out of our secure care centers that's a boxing champion. It's those kind of stories that you actually get goosebumps and you like telling it. So I'll get the exact name of the gentleman that went through the remote program. He is one of their ambassadors, and we do sell those stories, and it warms the heart because it gives that motivation to others that go through similar circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, that concludes question number 2. We move on to question number 5, and I recognize the Honorable Minister, Minister of Social Development, Minister Lond.
Thank you. So Honorable Comfer asked, what is his department doing to ensure that every municipality has a functioning local drug action committee? The Department of Social Development has established the Western Cape Substance Abuse Forum, which provides a range of support to municipalities for the establishment and operations of local drug action committees. The DSD Western Cape Substance Abuse Forum has continuously engaged with mayors, their municipalities, and their stakeholders to encourage the establishment and functioning of local drug action committees. The Department of Social Development Western Cape Substance Abuse Forum uses the LDEC standard operating procedure to provide orientation, capacity building, refresher workshops that give an overview of the Prevention of and Treatment of Substance Abuse Act number 70 of 2008, Chapter 10, to the mayors, their municipalities, stakeholders, and communities. This aligns with the Act's emphasis on a whole-of-society approach. The DSD-WCSAF annual reports highlights the progressive efforts of the established and functioning LDECs in adopting the NDMP 29-2024 time period, despite the limited resources available to them. For example, challenges remain in achieving comprehensive intersectoral collaboration and full departmental engagements. The ongoing efforts to improve these areas, along with the planned capacity building workshops, training, and increased coordination, demonstrate a commitment by DSD to fulfill the Act and as it's mandated. Then section B, why are there only 16 of a possible 25 LDEC local drug action committees? Local drug action committees have been established at 19 of the 30 municipalities, but some need to be re-established. The latest status of LDECs, they are as follows. City of Cape Town, Alcohol and Drug Action Committee established, an expansion of sub-council area LDECs currently underway. Theewaterskloof LDEC, they were established. Swartland, Saldanha, Swellendam, Mossel Bay, Hessequa, Stellenbosch, Matsikama, Knysna, Cape Agulhas. Overstrand, they've got re-establishing of ADEC. George LDEC, Witzenberg, Drakensberg, Prince Albert, the re-establishment of Langeberg, Oudtshoorn and Bergrivier. Municipalities with no established LDECs are as follows: Beaufort West, Laingsburg, Breedevallei, Bito, Cedarburg, Kannaland. And then there's the district municipalities, which is West Coast, Cape Winelands, Overberg, Garden Route, and Central Karoo.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Honourable Comfort. Then I recognize the Honourable Kaiser Philander and then Honourable Windvogel.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Thank you very much for the response, Minister. The local drug action committees obviously reside within municipalities, which is the government closest to the people. Honourable Minister, how does the department monitor the performance and the impact of local drug action committees across all municipalities? Thank you, Speaker.
Dankie. Agbare Minister.
Thank you. We actually have a dedicated staff member that engages with the municipalities. And that member have presented to the standing committee before. But it's an ongoing engagement, as I said earlier, that we engage with the mayors, with the municipalities, making sure that we are as close as possible aligned to the legislation and in line with the National Drug Master Plan 2019 to 2024.
Thank you very much. Honourable Windvogel.
Thank you, Speaker. I think I was partly covered by Member Philander, but I also want to check with the Minister, because out of the 16 existing committees, how many are actually functional, meeting regularly, implementing programs and reporting outcomes rather than merely existing on paper? Because you mentioned a lot of names, municipalities, and I know for a fact that they are not functional. As I'm saying that Member Philander covered me with the monitoring system. What type of, I really want to understand, is it only engagement between the staff member from your office with those different municipalities, or are they submitting reports in terms of work done? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Just a quick correction. There's local drug action committees, 19 out of the 30 have been established. There's some that's busy, that's doing with re-establishment. So as I said, it's Langeberg, Oudtshoorn, Bergrivier that's re-establishing. So I mean, you can interpret that as the 16 or 19. It depends on from municipality to municipality. You argue that some are more proactive than others. But Honourable Member, we are happy to drill down in each one specifically. There's an area that you say, listen, you're aware that they are just ticking the box and they are not doing what they are supposed to do. Please flag that with us so that we can get our team to then go out and maybe sit in on that meeting as well. The legislation is there, the guidelines is there to make the maximum impact. But if you are aware of an area that it's a box ticking, in your opinion or in your view, let's look into that together and see if we can then take it from the words that's in the legislation to actionable implementation thereof.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Before I recognize you, Honourable Kaiser Philander, Honourable Minister, again, please speak to me and not directly to the member. Honourable Kaiser Philander.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, through you to the Minister. Minister, I was going to ask on the measurable impact that these LDECs have in the different communities when it comes to reducing substance abuse, but one will also want to drill in the specific areas. So nothing prevents the oversight committee from inviting the department back in going into that finer detail per area. For that reason, Speaker, I then will not be posing a question at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kaiser Philander. Are there any further opportunities? Are there any further questions to the Minister on this question? If not, we move. That brings us to end on question number 5, as printed on the question paper. We move on to question number 7, and I recognize the Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety, Minister Marais.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for the question, Honourable Ngentsu. The department continues to support the deployment of LEAP officers in the areas most affected by violent crime in partnership with the City of Cape Town. LEAP officers in these priority areas have also been allocated to support the Army deployment during Operation Prosper. The department is working with other stakeholders to strengthen the response of government and civil society. One such initiative is a community safety and development program in Mitchells Plain, where the department is working with community representatives, government departments, and external stakeholders to address the drivers of violent crime. There is also an anti-gang implementation plan to discuss emerging trends in the gang landscape and assist all security stakeholders present to adjust their approach to address the prevailing circumstances. And then part B, the province exercises oversight over the South African Police Service and municipal police on a continuous basis, but also through the Provincial Safety Council chaired by the Premier. SAPS and other stakeholders report on crime statistics and programs to address violent crime. And we summoned the PC General Patekile to account to Cabinet about the operational aspects of fighting the surge of the ongoing conflict. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Ngentsu and then Honourable Van Minnen. Did I miss anyone?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, MEC, for attempting to respond. I think the MEC you partly covered question A, but you did not respond to question B. The question is, why has the not decisive oversight respond to this ongoing crisis in this period as recorded? We understand the principles you outlined.
Honourable Member, you have posed your Honourable Member, you have posed your question. Honourable Members, before I recognize the Minister again, a reminder, you are allowed in terms of the rules to ask one follow-up question. There is 3 additional opportunities after the initial member who posed the question ask his or her follow-up question. So use those opportunities. Honourable Minister, over to you.
Thank you for the follow-up. Honourable Ngentsu, I must tell you, it is very complex and difficult in our oversight over SAPS. We do
Honourable Ministers, can I please ask that you please work with me and speak to me and not directly to the members? We deal with the rules in this house and not relationships. Honourable Minister, please speak to me.
Apologies, Speaker.
Relations.
So that's why we constantly ask for the expansion of some policing powers, like investigation.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Is that a point of order, Honourable Member?
Yes.
Is your point of order?
In the period under review, what is it what oversight role did you play? That's the question B.
Honourable Member, that's not a point of order, and you cannot dictate how the Minister responds to your question. And it's not the job of the presiding officer to adjudicate on the answer. So that is not a point of order. Honourable Lacker, is that a new point of order? Okay. Honourable Minister, you may continue.
So what we do, or what I do, I go out and do unannounced visits to SAP stations. I build relationships with the good cops, and we lift out all the problems that we do have in our hotspot areas. We do regular walkabouts, late night, early mornings with the neighborhood watches, with SAPs, with law enforcement, with our LEAP, and with our traffic at times. And that's our oversight, to see for ourselves what is going on and make recommendations according to what we see to PC, General Patikili, and I have regular meetings with General Patikili. And I must say, recently in Samora Machel, I visited Samora Machel in the beginning of March. That's got terrible conditions. And after 2 weeks, we did get everything that we addressed. We got from PC, General Patikili, except the vehicle. But we're on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Honorable Van Minen, and then Honorable Lekker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. What I'd like to know is, in terms of the shortcomings of the Community Safety Act and oversight, how is community level intervention such as neighbourhood watches and CPFs being strengthened in the most affected areas to prevent further escalation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Van Minen, for the question. The neighbourhood watches, as well as the CPFs, can ask for a funding that we can give to them. We also look into the accreditation of all the neighbourhood watches, as well as our CPF. We work closely with the CPF chairpersons, and as well as with the neighbourhood watches on a regular basis. And then we're in a process to change our Community Safety Act to enhance our commitment, and I want to say elaborations with our neighbourhood watches and CPFs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Lekker, and then Honorable Gensu.
Speaker, I would like to know were there any resources redirected as a result of the crisis cited under A, and you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. I just want to, the first part of your question I didn't get.
Honorable Minister, please take your seat.
Was there any resources that were redirected as a result of the crisis of the 300 and something people that were killed? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Yes, thank you for the question, Honorable Lekker. Yes, we did redeploy our LEAP officers. There's a reaction unit that went out to these hotspot areas. We work closely also with Operation Lockdown and Operation Chanela too, to address these terrible killings that happened. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Gensu.
Thank you very much, MC. Speaker MC, in responding, she indicated that the conditions of the people of Samora Machel are horrible. What are those conditions? Can she paint a picture to this House about the condition which she observed when she visited Samora Machel? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for the question. I think it's a new question, if I've got it right, but I will give you our report. I will send a report through to you. There were no, the gate wasn't working. This police station is falling apart. That's just one of the stuff. The staff members, you know, there's not enough officers at the police station. So telephones didn't work. But I will give the report to Honourable so that they can look at it, and everyone has been addressed except the vehicle situation that we're looking at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. That is the end of the 4 opportunities to the Minister. So that brings us to the end of question number 7. We move on to question number 11. And I recognise the Honourable Minister of Social Development, Minister Lund. Can you please speak to me?
Honourable Speaker, I will speak directly to you and I will make sure that everybody hears me quite clearly. So the Honourable Lita Kong asked whether there is a database for elderly people in need of placements at old age homes funded by the department, especially for elderly people who rely on state grants. If so, what are the relevant details? So part 1 is as follows. There is no centralized database for elderly people in need of placement in residential facilities being kept and managed by the Department of Social Development in the Western Cape. All older persons requiring social work assistance from the department are logged on the department's social work integrated management system application. For placements in old age homes, the Department of Social Development subsidizes bed spaces at residential facilities which are independently owned and managed entities. Each facility has its own admission policy, a set of admission criteria, and payment structure, maintaining its own admissions list. Prospective residents or family members are able to apply directly to these facilities with the assistance of the department if required. The second part is whether the department has its own old age homes that they administer to the benefit of elderly in need of care. If not, why not? The department does not operate its own old age homes, but funds 113 old age homes run by NPOs to a total amount of 227.5 million in this current financial year. The department also funds older person service centers as well as independent and assisted living projects. The department aims to align itself with the objectives of the Older Persons Act 13 of 2006, which promotes community-based care for older persons in order to ensure that an older person can remain in his or her home within the community for as long as possible. The department primarily funds old age homes for persons needing frail care and who are unable to remain in their community.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognise the Honourable Lita Kong. Honourable Kaiser Philander.
Very much, Speaker. Thank you for the response, Minister. My question, given the increase, Minister, through you, Speaker, the increase in the cost of living and the operational expenses, Minister, that faces these facilities, what are the national contribution towards that, if any, Minister? And also the subsidy levels in line with, are these subsidy levels in line with inflation and the rising cost of essential services? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. There was 2 parts to that question. So, Honourable Minister, I will allow you to answer the first part. There's another opportunity if you so wish, Honourable Kaiser Philander.
So it's true that the cost of living crisis, the cost of living is getting more expensive for everyone. And that's why when we presented to the Treasury, we motivated for an above inflation increase. On an average, as I said previously, we got a 4% increase. And one of the areas that we have identified is the older person. So we got a increase, but it's never enough. And that is why we try and find alternative resources, alternative sources. I mean, recently, Minister Simmers has assisted us in facilitating donations of nappies for elderly people. We donated just over 50,000 rands to 3 of the old age homes that really struggle. And that's what we try and do. We will make sure that from our side, we motivate for the highest possible increase. We make sure that we fund those 113 facilities. We pay our subsidy in advance. We have now brought in additional subsidies that we haven't done previously for other categories in the facilities. But we also assist with the organizations to get a platform for them. And that's one of the sectors that I visited a lot whether it is in Beaufort West or whether it's in Knysna, whether it's up in the West Coast here in the Metro. We try and visit these facilities and highlight the need for individuals and corporates to get involved with them. And as the members know, there were about 5 facilities that were on our watch list that had trouble in managing or meeting all the requirements. We saw that KSE has started turning around with the administrator that we've put there. Vermont has done a good job in getting themselves turned around. But we are the province that's got one of the highest percentage of elderly residents, and it's incredibly expensive housing them in the old age homes. So we need to try and find that way of getting that care in the communities. And that is also the Older Persons Forum has presented to yourself. And they've come together as a body to make sure that we find a way and best practices of looking for the older persons at a lower rate. And that often means that we need to do that in our communities. So yeah, there's always space for improvement, but we have done our best to make sure that from our side, we give above inflation support and then see how we can unlock further funding. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the next person is Honourable Kaiser Philander, then Honourable Barnes, and then Honourable Marais.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Through you to the Minister. Minister, there is a need, and it seems like there will always be a need for these care facilities. So what are the department's long-term strategy in place to address this growing demand? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. So I briefly touched on that, but it is incredibly expensive doing a residential facility. And what we will then have to start doing is getting more community-based support. That's happening. We are seeing it already being rolled out. But if you can care for somebody in their home, in their community for as long as possible, and then only when they become frail and need that higher level of care, then you start institutionalizing people. That might be one of the solutions. But it's a ever increasing age threshold that we're dealing with. People are becoming older, and we're also finding more and more people struggling with dementia, with Alzheimer's, and that also takes more staff to look after a smaller group of people, which also pushes up the cost. But there are also, we've seen some technological advancements where you can monitor people with less staff. We recently on an oversight saw where you monitor somebody's heart rate while they're sleeping. And if something then happens, it gets picked up by the nurses station. We need to see how we can start incorporating technology in driving down the cost. Obviously, your initial expenses will be higher, but in the long term, that will work as well. And those are some of the options that we are looking at to see what we can do to deliver the same level of care at a lower cost in our facilities, but we also need to make sure that we expand our footprint within the communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognise the Honourable Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question would be on monitoring, Speaker. What monitoring systems are put in place to old age homes that are funded by the department? How does the department follow the money if it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, that specific old age home? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable Minister.
I mean, we've been doing this, Honourable Speaker, for a number of years. We send our officials out. They make sure that the organizations are compliant. The one thing that I did flag, and I've said this to the committee as well, that we want to try and see how we can do more regular monitoring outside of that, what is required. We have piloted some of our blitz monitoring or speed monitoring, so we will still make sure that we comply to the norms and standards in terms of monitoring, but we also want to make sure that we increase that. And that is also, I mean, through you, Honorable Stevens have done that before. Honorable Philander has done that before. They visited. Honorable Kamfer has also done that. They visited the facilities and then they flag when there's an issue. And then we make sure that we send out our officials to look at those complaints. So the standard cycle of monitoring, we will continue doing that. But if there's any issue that's being flagged, we do go out and send people to follow up on those interventions, and some of them had valid grounds, and then we start putting corrective measures in place. And that is what I appreciate about this committee, that they they give us, hulle gee ons gas, ek weet nie wat dit in Engels is nie, maar hulle gee ons gas, maar hulle sorg ook dat ons werk doen en dat ons die ad hoc besoeke ook doen wanneer daar kwessies geopper word met ons.
Thank you very much, Minister. I recognize the Honorable Marais.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I wanted to know from the Minister, he mentioned that there was no database for those who apply for placement. Now, but there is record kept in their database of the applications. Now, I just want to understand that how does your department then plan for future demand for placement for those who are dependent on social grants and those who also need placement but are not dependent on social grants and have the ability to pay their way? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
So I just want to correct the honourable member, Speaker, through you. I didn't say there were no database. I said there were no centrally administered database, but there is a database at each of the 113 facilities. And I'm going to use the one that I recently visited in Laingsburg. They've got open space. So Honourable Marais referred to those that's maybe not SASSA dependent. I mean, we can connect individuals to all of the old age homes. The problem is sometimes people only want to live in a certain area, and some of that might be oversubscribed. But when we have queries like this, we put them in contact with the different organizations. There's 113 that we fund in the province, and then that's we connect the individuals. So if the member has a question around the database, I mean, we can pool the records, but that's not centrally administered, like when we do the placement of our children. That is a centrally administered database. But there we only manage 55 organizations. That is our NPO-run CYCCs, and then also our secure care facilities. But yeah, I think I try to cover both parts of what Honourable Marais asked. But if you want any specific area, the database, we can pull that records through the NPOs. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that concludes question 11. We now move over to question 1 under new. Honourable Heron, is that a point of order?
It is, Speaker, but I didn't mean to stand before you finish speaking.
No, you can continue, because I was just going to move over to the first question. So if you have a point of order.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. I'd like you to rule on whether question 1 complies with Rule 202, subsection 3, that a question for oral reply may not contain more than 5 subdivisions. I've had several questions returned to me because as soon as you introduce "if so," I've been informed that that introduces an additional subdivision. So if the rules are going to be applied consistently, then this oral question has 6 subdivisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the interest of, I'm just going to get procedural guidance. So in the interest of your point of order, can I then move on to question number 2, and then we can come back to question number 1, if that's in order with the House? Thank you very much. We will then move on to question number 2. Minister Lont.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. So the question from Honourable Kaiser Philander, what concrete measures is the department implementing to strengthen its own internal capacity to fulfill its constitutional mandate to protect children? And B, how will it ensure that the increasing demand does not further strain an already overburdened non-profit sector? So Honourable Speaker, the organisational development process to review and strengthen the organisational structure in certain areas where the Department of Social Development needs to address capacity within the different regions has been finalised and approved. The newly approved post will now be advertised. Any increase in capacity can only be implemented within the department's existing budget allocations and remains subject to the restrictions imposed by DPSA regarding the expansion of the government workforce. The department's capacity has also been impacted by the early retirement options recently introduced by the national government. The first phase of this process has now been concluded, and DSD will proceed with the necessary recruitment process to fill the affected positions. The rollout of the SWIMS application among departmental staff to improve caseload management efficiency and reduce administrative burden on staff is at an advanced stage. All of these frontline social workers are now using SWIMS, and they have a collective total of over 113 cases active on the system. The system is now also being extended to child protection NPOs, Department of Health and Wellness, and the Western Cape Education Department to further improve integration and efficiency of interdepartmental and intersectoral child protection work. The second part of the question, the Department of Social Development, referred to as the department, acknowledges the increasing demand for services and the existing pressures faced by the non-profit sector. In response, the department is reaffirming its commitment to strengthening the non-profit sector by implementing several targeted interventions to mitigate and alleviate further strain on the designated child protection organizations, DCPOs, in the Western Cape. The department manages its partnership with the non-profit sector in a manner that promotes transparency, fairness, and long-term sustainability. This includes advocating for increased budget allocations, implementing a unified and standardized funding process, and ensuring the timely disbursements of funds, thereby enabling designated child protection organizations to be adequately resourced to consistently meet service delivery demands. All designated child protection organizations have been allocated an overall increased funding allocation for the 2026-2027 financial year. In addition, the department provides supplementary financial support, including ad hoc bailout funding to DCPOs on a needs basis and subject to the availability of funds. The department is further strengthening its monitoring and support mechanisms to ensure that designated child protection organizations receive not only effective oversight, but also clear policy direction, developmental guidance, and support. The Provincial Department conducts monitoring and evaluation through scheduled on-site visits, as well as recently introduced unannounced visits to DCPOs to ensure legislative compliance, address service delivery and governance issues, enable better planning, and ensure that funding is directed where it has the greatest impact. On these visits, designated child protection organizations provide the department with comprehensive insights into its achievements as well as its challenges. The department promotes partnerships and collaboration between government, the non-profit sector, and other stakeholders to enhance coordination, avoid duplication of services, and optimize the impact of available resources. This is supported with clear roles, responsibilities, referral pathways, and transfer payment agreements so that the demand for services is managed more evenly with partners and stakeholders across the province. The Provincial Department also convenes quarterly forum meetings with designated child protection organizations and key stakeholders, providing a strategic platform to deliberate and implementation challenges and agree on appropriate resolutions at a higher level. The department thus seeks to sustain strengthened working relationships with DCPOs and stakeholders to work collaboratively to ensure that services are responsive and relevant to the needs of vulnerable groups. Speaker, I'm just going to take a sip. As a mouthful. Thank you. The department invests in ongoing capacity building initiatives, including training, governance support, and compliance assistance to enhance the institutional strength and service delivery of the non-profit sector. Regular training on the provisions of the Children's Act, policies, standard operating procedures, trafficking of unaccompanied migrant children, and other legislation, for an example, to assist the sector to deliver services in line with the legislative prescripts. The department also reviewed the administrative processes with reporting tools to ease the administrative burden on organizations by gradually introducing the social work integrated management system, allowing organizations to focus on service delivery rather than compliance-related demands. The department further provides additional operational support to assume responsibility for service delivery as a last resort in instances where designated child protection organizations are unable to manage or lack the capacity to render services, often due to financial constraint. Lastly, there is a continued focus on expanding prevention and early intervention programs, which will help manage the demand for statutory interventions and reduce pressure on designated child protection organizations, providing statutory and crisis service. Through these interventions, the department aims to create a more enabling, supportive, and sustainable environment for the non-profit sector to effectively deliver critical services to the communities. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kaiser Philander.
Baie dankie, agbare speaker. Speaker, ek sien die minister het die antwoord baie ver gaan haal. Sover as wat ek hierdie vraag gaan haal het om baie te kon vra binne hierdie vraag, maar minister het baie gedek. Baie dankie daarvoor. Minister, you might mention about the partnerships with the sector, with the NPO sector. You've also made mention of the funding increases. So obviously we welcome that. So my question will then be, Speaker, how are these funding models that the Minister has made reference to for non-profit partners being reviewed? How are they being reviewed? And reviewed to ensure that they are adequate as well as inflation adjusted. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Yeah, so Honourable Speaker, through you, as I mentioned in the answer, we have given increases to all the DCPOs. It is impossible for us to deliver services as government alone, and that is why we are quite proud of the work that NGOs are doing in the province, and we are advocates for making sure that they get above inflation increases. It's not always possible. Some get a higher percentage than others, but on average there was a 4% increase. Where we do find that some of the organizations struggle, we try and step in. Recently, we took over 700 cases from one organization here within the city of Cape Town. And why was that possible? That is because we have lessened the administrative burden on our social workers to free up more time to do the interventions. There's unfortunately another organization that we had to withdraw their DCPO status in one of the towns, because we found that the services were not done to the expected standards. There again, the department is stepping in. But there's also examples of DCPOs that do much more. And that is why we are unashamedly advocating for the support of these organizations. We are going out of our way to support them, not from the department alone, but also finding alternative sources. And next week, we will be handing over smart devices to one of these organizations that do child protection work to then also get them on the SWIMS application. So it's not a one size fits all. There's also not just one answer that will address this problem. But the one thing that we are unequivocal about is that we need to make sure that we strengthen the NGO space, because it's only when we take hands together, that whole of society approach, that we can make sure that we have, what do I say, there was 113,000 active cases on the SWIMS app, that not one of those cases fall through the cracks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions, follow-up questions? If not, that brings us to the end of question 2. Honourable members, can I just ask that the clock stop, because I don't want to. Honourable Heron, based on your point of order, I've verified and I've checked the rules as per the question paper as printed, and then question number 1 complies with Rule 202 in terms of a standing rule, and for that reason, I'm going to allow the Minister to respond. Minister Marais.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Van Minen, for this question. The Western Cape Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety does not have a direct decision-making role in the appointment of a Provincial Commissioner of SAPS. Its role is to provide input by making submissions and comments to the Premier regarding the suitability of any proposed candidate. Premier Alan Winde, as head of the Provincial Executive, has officially been notified in writing by the now suspended National Police Commissioner of the impending expiring of Lieutenant General Patikili's employment contract and the intention not to extend his term of office. The Premier has further been informed that the post of Provincial Commissioner will be advertised in due course and that further consultation will follow as part of the process. The Premier has only been informed of the upcoming vacancy and the intention to advertise the position, with further steps in the process still to unfold. And lastly, I have not received any written communication from the National Executive regarding the appointment of a Provincial Commissioner. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable van Minen.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. If I could please ask what the time periods are with this in terms of when we can expect this process to start unfold and to also resolve itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Thank you. Honourable van Minen, I am not sure what the time period will be, but I am concerned because the General Patikili's contract is ending the end of June. I've heard that they did advertise the post, but I haven't seen it. So for me, it is of utmost urgency that we appoint a Provincial Commissioner as soon as possible. Thank you.
Honourable van Minen.
Thank you very much. Given what was said about the further consultation that will still follow, is there any idea how long this process is likely to take, given what's happened in the past? Thank you.
Well, I have to say, Honourable van Minen, that you know what's going on at National and SAPS and all the ad hoc committees and investigations. Hopefully it will be a month, but I foresee that it will be almost 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Speaker. Through you, can I just check with the Minister, given that you consistently indicate that policing is a national competence, is there where the national minister has got an obligation to inform you about hiring of a provincial commissioner?
Thank you for the question. There is an obligation to inform the Premier about the National Commissioner's process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last opportunity, Honourable Ngensu.
Thank you very much, Speaker and MEC. MEC, do you have an interest on who should be appointed as the next Provincial Commissioner?
Honourable Minister, did you?
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to have interest, but no, I don't have any interest at this moment. We'll see which names they will put forward and we work from that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honourable members. Honourable members, that brings us to the end of question number 1. We move on to question number 3. I recognize the Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, as per the agreement between the relevant questioners and the ministers, questions number 3, 4, and 9 will kindly stand over as per those agreements. Sorry, questions number 3, 4, and 10 on the green paper.
Thank you very much, Chief Whip. I then move on to question number 6 on the question paper. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Infrastructure, Minister Simmers.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Through to Member Heron. The A part of your question is 5 parcels of land have been released in the last 18 months for the purposes of housing development. The B part of your question, Leeuwloop is now at the development or the developer appointed stage. Founders Garden is in the developer procurement stage. And number 10 on Fort Wynand, or as commonly known as Helen Bowden, is now at our pre-disposal consultation phase. The Provincial Pavement Testing Lab is now at the developer procurement stage. 353 on Main, formerly known as Tafelberg site, it's now in the land use management and heritage statutory process stage. The C part of your question is that project-specific budgets are not allocated, as the department must fund the varying costs of obtaining the necessary development rights and of taking the development to market. The D part of your question, it takes 3 years following handover to the developer. The E part of your question, in terms of how many social housing units, if any, are being proposed. For Leeuwloop, 363. For Founders Garden, 1,185. For 10 on Fort Wynand, 302. In terms of the Provincial Pavement Testing Lab, it will be affordable rental only. And 353 on Main will be 220. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for the reply. My question to the Minister, follow-up question to the Minister is, how many of these social housing units that are proposed on these sites are funded?
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Indeed, I understand the member's question, given that SHRA itself has funding constraints, and I will be able to provide the member and the House a detailed written response, Speaker, with your permission, given that I have to go into the data of each project and where we are in terms of the SHRA allocations, if that is in order with the House and the member. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much. There's 13 seconds left, so I'm going to ask Honourable Wessels, who's the next questioner, to unfortunately not pose it because you won't have an opportunity to respond. Honourable members, that brings us to the end of oral questions or questions for oral reply. Honourable members, outstanding replies will be printed in Hansard, and we now move on to questions to the Premier without notice in terms of Rule 204. I wish to remind members that 2 follow-ups per the member posing the question, which relates to the question, the original question for reply. I recognize Honourable Syed. Honourable members, just perhaps before Honourable Syed, I just need to inform the House that the acting Premier is Minister Meyer, so the questions will be posed to the acting Premier in terms of the rules. Honourable Syed.
Honourable Speaker, thank you very much, and we congratulate the acting Premier, Dr. Meyer, and the former national leader of the DA on his appointment as the acting Premier. Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Van Minen earlier in the sitting reminded us that 5 people are killed a day in the Western Cape. Now, in light of the National Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy's requirement that the Office of the Premier must be capacitated to coordinate, monitor, and to look at the actual implementation of the strategy in the province, can the acting Premier inform this House what specific steps have been taken to fulfill this role in the Western Cape, whether the Office of the Premier has dedicated capacity, budget, and monitoring systems for this purpose? I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the acting Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, to the question. The question relates to the capacity of the Office of the Premier, but the Office of the Premier. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. We are dealing with a questions to the Premier without notice in relation to crime and capacity. We all know what is the situation in terms of crime in the Western Cape. While the Western Cape can intervene where possible in terms of the role of the Premier and by extension the role of this executive through the MEC for community safety or police oversight and community safety. The Premier's office have on numerous occasions dealt with this matter in terms of the national competencies of the South African police, and they suffer from a multitude of issues ranging from resource allocations within the South African police to a complete collapse of the detection and investigative capacities. Well, I have also had an opportunity this afternoon, Honourable Deputy Speaker, to look at the 2025 parliamentary reply in terms of the vacancy rate within the South African police. It now sees at 12.39% vacancy and an average rate across the Western Cape stations with only 12,908 active South African police members and operationally deployed to stations. This is a matter of serious concern. The Premier and the Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety is on record. They have established an interministerial committee to look into this particular matter, where the South African police, the senior managers, as well as the, in fact, it happened about in the less than 10 days ago. I've seen General Particular here, where these matters of the capacity within the police are discussed. The matters relating to the office of the Premier. The Premier is most of the time chairing some of these activities, engaged with the South African police services. And what we have seen is that between 2016 and 2023, South Africa has lost more than 8,400 qualified detectives from the ranks of the South African Police Service. The Western Cape sees South Africa's highest number of vacancies in this regard, with 902 vacancies for detectives in this province. And Honourable Deputy Speaker, this has resulted in a situation in which detectives are expected to handle more than double the international benchmark of active dockets. Internationally, a detective must deal with about 60 dockets. And this is matters that the Premier also brought to the table, because in a parliamentary reply, he indicated that the caseload per detective frequently ranges into the triple figures, especially in high crime areas. Some of the worst include the Dorans, a detective dealing with 216 cases, whereas the international norm is 60 dockets. Lingoletu West, one single detective dealing with 271 dockets. Right here, 20 minutes from where we are now, in Maitland, a single detective is dealing with 439 dockets, and in Samora Machel, 367. Once again, there are serious matters of concern which this Premier under his leadership is. The question was also the resources. If there's one matter that takes the most resources, and time is a resource, time and energy and allocation of resources also to dealing with the LEAP officers are presented through the office of the Premier. And we have seen that the detection rates in 2024 stood at 37.25% for attempted murder and 7.04% for murder. To oversimplify this, Honourable Deputy Speaker, you have bigger than 92% chance of getting away with murder in the Western Cape. And Honourable Deputy Speaker, one of the resources that is being used in this government, which I've consulted earlier today, which the Honourable Minister discussed in length, bringing it to the Cabinet, and that is a resource of the Premier. And I've consulted earlier today the Western Cape Police Needs and Priorities Report of 2025. And the Premier is on record as the Minister, because the question is always asked, what is the Premier doing? And so the Premier has tabled in the Cabinet, together with the Minister, some real recommendations and findings in terms of the police needs and priorities. And so the Premier spent most of his time on the implementation of the Western Cape Safety Plan, the role of law enforcement officials. He made the recommendations about strengthening neighborhood watches, which is the primary concern of Honourable Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety. The Premier instructed both of us to work extensively in the area of rural safety. We will come soon to the Western Cape Cabinet with a rural safety strategy. The Honourable Deputy Speaker will appreciate that the Premier has engaged with the US Ambassador, the newly appointed US Ambassador. A single item that was discussed is technology applications to fast-track developments within the rural safety space. I was returning yesterday from Pretoria. I am planning to visit him soon in Pretoria in relation to technology, because he made it absolutely clear they want to assist us in this particular regard. The community safety forums, part of the empowerment program from the Premier, and the Premier has discussed also some specific police interventions. And so for us, this is important. The Premier's biggest role in this regard, he always tells us, show us the data and the evidence for the strategy. The resources today, we cannot allow to be everywhere. And that's why we have targeted interventions at certain places, following a data approach, evidence-based approach. And so whenever the release of quarterly crime statistics is done, because one of the things of this government, we interrogate the data, redeploy some of the resources to where it is needed, and we also make recommendations to the South African police. So data is a resource, the capacity in the Office of the Premier, focusing specifically on reducing the levels of crime, but this is not an exclusive mandate of the Premier. I'm also armed with developments that we have seen in terms of the LEAP officers. As you know, we have fund through the Premier's initiatives and the Minister. We have fund about 1,200 LEAP officers between 2020 and 2025. These units have made more than 48,000 arrests, 1,222 which were related to illegal firearms. We also had other direct initiatives, which include the K9 and rural safety units, peace officers, and upstream prevention initiatives such as the MOT Center of Minister Mackenzie, as well as the Year Beyond programs, the Chrysalis Academy, the Gender-Based Violence Ambassador Program, and the Chrysalis Academy. However, all of these initiatives, to conclude, Honourable Deputy Speaker, on this matter, initiatives represent instances in which the Western Cape government has already exceeded its mandate. There's no other provincial government that went beyond, almost beyond its mandate in terms of this particular function here in South Africa. And although this is not a function primarily in terms of the Constitution to allocate the resources, we went to allocate resources because we believe the safety of the citizens of this province comes first. And so the Premier and the Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety spend most of their time and their resources in focusing on this particular matter, because you cannot grow the economy when crime is out of control. But the Honourable Minister, just before I started to answer the questions, referred to the Madlanga Commission. We have made representations at the Khayelitsha Commission previously. That Khayelitsha Commission, we made certain recommendations. In fact, to members of this House, we declared a dispute. And you will know that one member of this House, a previous MEC, Albert Fritz, based on that dispute that we declared in terms of the resource allocations to deal with this matter of crime, it is a serious matter in this House and in this province. And the Premier requested Honourable Member at the time, Albert Fritz, to engage with the South African Police, which he did. At the time, also engaging with the then Minister of Police, Bekitele. Based on that, ek is dorsal 'n bietjie is. Okay, in dit kansie. And so, through that engagement, there was an agreement. Let's see if we can work together, because there was a court has ruled that the South African police services have done an injustice to this province. This is a court ruling, an injustice in terms of the allocation of resources to this province. And the latest data shows and prove that this matter will now be dealt with in the court in the end of next month, which is June 2026. We are worried that we engage on a continuous basis with the police minister, but when we go back, that police minister, Honourable Member, through you, Deputy Speaker, the police minister, as you know, when we go back, it's the Lolo, a new one is there. And so we are concerned. And so the Premier engaged also with the President about this particular matter. He frequently meet the President at the PCC, which is the President Coordinating Council, and part of that responsibility. The question was, what is the resources? Engaging with the President is a resource. It is time and energy. But apart from that, the financial resources, the Premier dedicated also officials in his own department to conduct research into this matter. And so, in my humble opinion, we have done everything possible, starting with the police needs and priority. There is no other provincial department in South Africa that has a police needs and priorities. Here is the report of 2025. Here are the recommendations and the Khayelitsha Commission activities. And I am very happy that we are doing everything possible. But when we get the reports of what the South African police are doing, we don't see significant, at scale, a reduction in crime. And I know, through your Honourable Deputy Speaker, my friend of over 20 years, Christians, he speaks frequently about crime.
Honourable Acting Premier, are you able to take your seat? The clock will be stopped.
I rise on a point of order, the relevance. The acting premier and former DA leader and representative to Taiwan has not spoken to what was asked in the question. The ICVPS was what was posed. He's not responded at all to that. Must not waste the time of residents and members of this House.
Members, although I'm unable to adjudicate on the subject and the content of the reply, I will state at this time there is now 4 minutes remaining. and I will allow the acting premier to continue.
Honorable Deputy Speaker,
Honorable Acting Premier, please take your seat.
I'm happy to do so, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Nkwensu.
I'm concerned about your ruling, Deputy Speaker, on the point raised by Honorable Said. Whether is it in the best interest of our people and in this parliament, or is it in the best interest of a leading party in this house? As he made the point that he is not responding to the question, but he wants to chow time.
I definitely take note. I definitely take note of the view of Member Syed. However, in this particular 20 minutes, for me to ultimately adjudicate would be unfair. The acting premier is responding to the question. He has interpreted the question, and there is processes to follow. So in that vein, I will allow the acting premier to continue.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, the honorable member of the ACDP has frequently raised, linked to this question, the issue of safety of children. It is under the leadership of this Premier and our MEC for Police Oversight and Community Safety and the Minister of Education that our safety plan, school safety, is focusing on trying to promote safety at schools. And so resources are allocated to this particular function to make sure that we are safe. Resources from this government was also used for the establishment of the Khayelitsha Commission, as you will know, and new officials should be appointed to fill vacancies which exist in the South African police services, and these new officials need to be continuously trained, flowing from the Khayelitsha Commission of Inquiry and the Equality Court case. It is recommended that the South African police urgently design a new human resource allocation system that allows for the equitable allocation of resources to areas which need it the most. And in this regard, the Premier made some specific recommendations, and we believe that the police commissioner must act in this particular regard. There are high levels of South African police absenteeism. It should be investigated, and the root causes of it must be addressed. SAPS currently reports on a highly fully fledged operational SAPS system in the employment, including those who have been disciplined and given a Section 102 sanction, which does not allow them to carry a firearm, and impacts their ability to act as a fully fledged SAPS member. It is recommended that SAPS reports on the number of officials with the sanction when it reports on its human resources strength. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the resources that we put into this function of community safety is so extensive. It goes way beyond this. We have even involved technical assistance from the Bavarian state government, technical cooperation between the Bavaria government, the Western Cape government, municipalities, and community safety.
Honorable Acting
That
Premier,
is our
can you please
engagement.
take your seat? The clock will be stopped. On the Honorable Syed.
Deputy Speaker, this is now becoming laughable and unacceptable. Clearly, the Honorable, whatever we call him, Acting Premier, does not take crime seriously and does not take the office of the Premier seriously. We asked a specific question. He's not responded to the specific question, nothing about the office of the Premier with regards to the ICVPS. Really, your ruling, I mean, I want to say that we take serious exception to your ruling, and I rose on a rule on the issue of relevance, and it was not addressed. But I understand this is more about party politicking ahead of the local government elections, cheap politics, and not the lives of people being gunned down in the Western Cape, in the Cape Flats. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Syed. Like I've indicated earlier on, a question was posed and the acting premier is then on the floor in order to answer that particular question. There's now 1 minute and 4 seconds remaining.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, it is live on national
Honorable
television.
acting premier, please take your seat. Are you rising on a new point of order?
It's a related point of order because if the acting premier does not take himself serious, at least he should take this house serious, because the member who posed the question has the constitutional right to also pose a follow-up question. And it does all of this so that we can have a problem of time and that it doesn't have time to respond or to ask a follow-up question. Just you as the presiding officer, where is discretion, where is logic, and where is common sense?
In our approach, are you?
Honorable Speaker, in fact, I want to address you, Deputy Speaker, as a former MEC of community safety. And I know when you were standing in that seat over there, you responded, you gave members the opportunity to engage because they had experiences. You were serious about addressing crime. Clearly, these ones here are not serious, especially the acting premier.
Thank you.
You should have ruled because, in fact, you are facilitating the undermining of democracy in the Western Cape. I want to put that on record.
Thank you, Honorable Syed. I see the Chief Whip.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Member is in violation of Rule 66(5). You've made a ruling. That ruling is final. If the member wants to challenge the ruling, the member has the appropriate mechanisms in place to do that. But standing up and shouting and screaming at us, it's not going to help us moving forward. So please, through you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, if the member can respect the rules and if you could just make sure that your ruling is adhered to.
Honorable members, I've noted the points of order and the inputs raised. We have noted the comments made from our side and in sitting in this particular chair. When a member rises, there's a person that is on the floor and that particular member is also listening to the inputs. I'm unable to direct any particular member, a minister or any member on how to respond or on what to respond. Hence, that engagements can continue, but there is processes that one can follow. I'm unable to inform the acting premier on what he needs to say. He is currently in that particular role. But there is further avenues. And I see Member Nkondlo and Member Barnes. I have stopped the clock in order to not allow the clock to continue, but I will take the 2 hands in that order, Member Nkondlo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, is it parliamentary that the only option that the House gets to put questions to the Premier without notice, that they get to be abused because only one question without even a follow-up, let alone other members who would have be given an opportunity in this House under fairness, if just we use fairness. Here is a time about to end without any other member having had the opportunity, which is a rare opportunity, to put questions to the Premier without notice so that we understand the affairs of this province.
Thank you so much, Member Nkondlo. Member Nkondlo, Member Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, mine is on the rule that Member Syed was making. You have not ruled on the point of relevance. Can you please give us a ruling on that one? I have not heard you responding to that. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Barnes, thank you so much. As I've attentively listened to the response, and especially key words in terms of the resources, I can understand the response. But in sitting in this chair in a 20-minute period, ultimately for me to then inform the minister or the acting premier that that is not relevant or has relevance will ultimately stop the engagement. Hence, I won't delve into that particular space. Hence, I have stated that the minister can continue. He has also heard clearly the points of order that were raised. Honourable members, this might be an ideal opportunity as well. Just a few hours ago, yesterday, the Rules Committee also engaged, and I'm needing to follow the rules in terms of the time period. And political parties and members are more than welcome to then provide amendments to the rules so that these particular matters can be ventilated properly. And furthermore, the comments made, and I definitely heard what Member Nkondlo said as well. If Member Nkondlo has that particular view, members in this House, not everyone will agree with that particular view. Other members here might feel that the acting minister, the acting premier has adequately responded to the question. So acting premier.
Speaker, if you ask a question, the answer will be given to you extensively and within the rules of Parliament. Can I just refresh the mind of members of this House? Because the question was about the powers and functions of the Premier. The powers and functions of a Premier is described in section 127 of the Constitution. And it says the Premier of a province has the powers and functions entrusted to it by the Constitution to amend any legislation. The Premier of a province is responsible
Honourable
for
Acting
sending
Premier,
and signing.
please take your seat. There's 26 seconds. You're rising on a new point of order.
Yes, Chair, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I would like to put on record now. My point of order is in terms of Rule 44. The Honourable Acting Premier is misleading the House. That was not my question, what he referred to now. And Rule 44 says, I want to read it. When a member persists in irrelevance or repetition of arguments, the presiding officer may call attention to that conduct and may then direct the member to stop speaking. Practically, this means, Deputy Speaker, that a member must speak to the matter before the House, which he is not doing. The rules also say that a member may speak to the question before the House, amendments, a point of order or question of privilege. None of this has happened. In fact, he's even re-emphasized now, hence I'm rising on a new point of order, because he's referring to something which I've not even asked.
Thank you.
Honourable.
Please take your seat. Before I respond, I see the Chief Whip.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, if my ears are serving me correctly, the Honourable Member that just cited Rule 44 is actually in violation of that very rule with this constant behaviour of standing up and interrupting an Honourable Member as they're trying to answer.
Honourable members, there is 26 seconds remaining to this particular rule in terms of 204 questions to the Premier without notice. This is a political debate, and in political debates, I can understand that the emotions can become extremely high. So I would want us to remain orderly so that we are able to proceed with the business of the day, but I will note you and we will stop the clock still.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, two issues here. I want to rise on a point of order against the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party. The Chief Whip is online. Where's your Premier? I can ask. Sorry, where is his Premier? Deputy Speaker, a point of order is not disruption. You recognized me when I rose my hand. I was able to speak. I did not disrupt the Honourable Acting Premier. The Chief Whip of the Democratic Alliance is misleading the House by saying that I have been disrupting the Speaker. That's incorrect. Number two, I think on this point, last week I felt differently, but I want to commend the Honourable Walters now in absentia for not supporting the Honourable Mayor in the DA Congress. I can now really see why I respect the Honourable Walters deeply.
Thank you so much. Honourable members, I will definitely apply my mind in terms of the 2 points of orders and revert back to the House if need be. There's now 26 seconds remaining.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, the question that was raised had to do with the functions and the responsibilities and the mandate of the Premier. Those functions are defined in the Constitution, and it's clear that this honourable member does not want to recognise the constitutional provisions of the Premier as contained in 127. And if I read this correctly, the functions and the responsibilities of
Honourable
the
Acting Premier, your time has expired.
in this debate.
Can you
I
please
thank you.
take your seat?
Your time is up, man. Your time is up. You've just wasted our time.
Honourable members, that is the end of questions to the Premier. I see that there's a point of order before we proceed in terms of Rule 145. I see the Honourable Member Adams.
Yeah, Chair, I just want to congratulate the acting Premier for being a good actor.
That is not a point of order. Honourable members, we will proceed in terms of Rule 145, and I now recognize the DA.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, our country is being held back by deliberate structural failures that have reversed decades of progress. In 2008, national unemployment stood at 21.5%. By late 2025, that figure had climbed to a staggering 31.4%. This decline is the result of a state hollowed from within. BEE and cater deployment disguised as empowerment programs have systematically destroyed once world-class institutions. Eskom is one of the clearest examples, collapsing from an energy availability factor of 90% to barely 55%. The Port of Cape Town is another. The result is a soaring electricity tariffs and freight costs that punish every household, farmer, and business. Rising global oil prices are now compounding the pain and choking economic recovery. BEE has become a patronage pipeline for the ANC politically connected elite. If we are serious about growth, we must confront the structural failures at the heart of our economic decline. We must end the era of political loyalty and restore merit, competence, and accountability. DA seeks all members in this House to support DA's economic inclusion bill to scrap BEE and replace it with poverty target procurement system. Honorable Speaker, we must acknowledge, Honorable Deputy Speaker, we must acknowledge that the ANC's decisions are the reasons for our current predicament. Those who sit in the opposition benches must own the failures of their leaders instead of heckling those working to fix the mess. The ANC's priority is no longer the people of South Africa, but the protection of cushy political positions. Our problems are structural, but they are fixable. It's time for voters to use the X wisely and vote the ANC out. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognize the African National Congress. We will arrange the podium. The movement of the podium may have settled some of the emotions. Honourable members, on your first word, the clock will commence.
I rise to draw the attention of this House to the orange level 8 severe weather warning affecting parts of the Garden Route district and to the devastating impact already being felt by communities. This is no longer a warning on paper. It has already resulted in the tragic loss of a life, and we also wish to offer our condolences to the family and colleagues of Lauren Fredericks, a social worker. Damage to property and severe hardship for residents living in informal settlements where families are exposed to flooding, cold, unsafe structures, and displacements. Residents in George, Neisner, Plettenberg Bay, and other vulnerable communities in the Garden Route are looking to this government for urgent leadership, shelter, and clear communication. On Tuesday morning, I wrote to Premier Windy calling for urgent provincial intervention. He's not here today. Coordinated disaster management and immediate support for affected communities. Apart from acknowledging receipt, the Premier has failed to provide a substantive response. This is deeply disappointing and disheartening. It creates the impression that because the Premier is comfortable and protected, he does not fully appreciate the fear and uncertainty facing poor and working class communities. We are also concerned that the George Mayor advised residents to seek shelter with family and friends instead of ensuring that municipal halls and safe public facilities are open for evacuation, warmth, and protection. The reality is that many of those families live in the very same vulnerable conditions as those seeking refuge. This moment requires visible leadership, coordination, and action, not silence, distance,
Thank
or
you,
excuses.
Honorable Syed. I recognize the Patriotic Alliance.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, today I rise with deep humility and gratitude as we reflect on the sacred gift of motherhood in anticipation of Mother's Day. Motherhood is not only a role, it is a calling ordained by God. In the book of Proverbs, we are reminded she is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. These words echo the spirit of every mother who rises daily, often unseen and uncelebrated, to nurture, protect, and guide her children. Across our nation, from the busy streets of our cities to the quiet corners of our rural communities, mothers are the backbone of our society. They are the first teachers, the silent warriors, and the keepers of hope. They carry not only the weight of their families, but often the burdens of poverty, inequality, and hardship. Yet they continue to love without condition. Let us always also remember the mothers who have had to endure unimaginable pain, those who have lost children, those raising children in difficult circumstances, and those who stand in the gap as grandmothers, aunts, and caregivers. Their strength is a testimony of faith. Their resilience reflects the grace of God. As scripture teaches us in Isaiah, can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has born? Even in the powerful question, we are reminded that a mother's love mirrors the very compassion of our Creator. Honorable members, if we are to build a just and prosperous South Africa, we must honor, uplift, and support our mothers, not only with words, but with action. This means strengthening social support systems, ensuring access to healthcare, protecting women from violence, and creating opportunities where mothers can thrive with dignity. Let us be clear. When we empower a mother, we uplift a family. When we uplift a family, we strengthen a community. And when communities are strong, our nation stands firm. To every mother listening today, biological,
Thank you,
adoptive,
Honorable. Kindly wrap up the final sentence.
spiritual, or those who have stepped into the role through love and sacrifice, we say we see you, we honor you, and we thank you. Your prayers, your tears, your sacrifices do not go unnoticed. God sees your labor of love. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. I recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, last week, the people of George, and more specifically the residents of Uniondale, once again placed their trust in the Democratic Alliance during the Ward 25 by-election. More than 1,000 residents placed their vote next to the DA, more than double the support received in the same ward during the 2021 local government elections. So why did the people vote for the DA? Because they can see delivery where it happens most. Die mense van Uniondale het vir die DA gestem omdat hulle kan sien waar hulle geld werk. Hulle het gestem vir dienslewering wat hulle daaglikse lewens verbeter. The 26-27 financial year, George Municipality allocated 3 million rand to the upgrades of the Uniondale sewer network and 10 million rand for road improvements. These include Hospital Street, Victoria Street, Aberdeen Street and Gardner Street. The people also voted for the DA because we invest in our communities. In the 25-26 financial year, the George Municipality allocated 50,000 rand to the Uniondale United for support of the local sport clubs, while Minister Mackenzie in this house handed over sporting equipment to the local teams in Uniondale earlier this year. Deputy Speaker, onder die DA en George, vir die 2026-2027 finansiële jaar is gratis basiese elektrisiteit vir kwalifiserende huishoudings verhoog van 70 na 80 eenhede per maand, terwyl die nasionale norm slegs 50 eenhede is. Honourable Speaker, the DA also understand that transport costs remain a barrier to employment. That is why the Western Cape government is expanding the job seeker travel voucher program to George, with over 5 million allocated to provide free transport for job seekers attending interviews.
Thank you,
Dis hoekom die
Honourable.
mense vir die DA stem. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Wessels. I recognize the EFF.
Speaker, the EFF would like to take this opportunity to condemn the recent spike in gun violence within the province. This follows the latest incident that took place in Elsies River, where 5 people were shot, resulting in a 39-year-old female losing her life, whilst 4 others were left wounded in a separate incident. Speaker, the common feature about these latest incidents is that they take place in broad daylight and in public spaces where innocent civilians, including children, are present. Majority of the victims are also caught in the crossfire as opposed to being the direct targets of perpetrators. Speaker, gun violence is so entrenched in the Western Cape to such an extent that it should be declared as an emergency provincial disaster in need of an urgent intervention. The escalation of these incidents is further made worse by skewed police to population ratio in the Western Cape, more so within the city of Cape Town municipality, where violent crime is so rampant. Just 2 years ago, on the 30th of August 2024, the now suspended Minister of Police, together with the Premier of this province in the city of Cape Town, acting mayor at the time, Edwin Andrews, formally signed the Western Cape Cooperation Agreement for Safety and Policing in Bel-Air. Speaker, the agreement was meant to be an alliance that would see cooperation between the South African police services alongside the city of Cape Town law enforcement in tackling the scourge of crime in the Western Cape. However, since then, nothing much has changed. As a matter of fact, the crime rate in the province continued to increase in real terms. Speaker, this prompted the national president to deploy military to the Western Cape. And even with such deployment, people are still murdered in our streets and in broad daylight on a daily basis. This clearly indicates that the government of national unity has failed, together with the Western Cape provincial government and the city of Cape Town, in tackling crime.
Thank you, Honourable Kasim. I recognize the NCC. We proceed. I recognize the ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the rising cost of living in the Western Cape is no longer an abstract economic concern. It is a daily crisis confronting the working class families who are being pushed deeper into poverty. The DA must be kept accountable for that. Research shows that more than half of households in Cape Town are food insecure, not because food is unavailable, but because it is unaffordable. Families are skipping meals, reducing nutritional intake, and making impossible choices between transport, electricity, and food. The DA must be kept accountable for that. This crisis is made worse by structural cost pressures in our province. Housing, transport, and municipal services in Cape Town are among the most expensive in the country. For many households, these costs consume the bulk of their income before a single meal is secured. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the recent High Court judgment against the City of Cape Town confirms what our people have long experienced. The court found that the city imposed unlawful fixed charges for water, sanitation, and cleaning charges that were not based on consumption and violated the law. This is not technical matter, Deputy Speaker. It is a direct admission that the city has been overburdening residents and contributing to the high cost of living. We therefore call on the provincial government and the municipalities to act decisively. Tariff structures must be fair, lawful, and pro-poor. Municipalities must prioritize affordability, Deputy Speaker, not revenue extraction from struggling households. Finally, Deputy Speaker, the escalating conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran will worsen this crisis. Rising oil prices will drive up transport costs, food prices, and taxi fares. It is the poor who feel it the most and most severely. The time for complacency is over, Deputy Speaker. The people of the Western Cape need urgent and practical intervention now, and the DA must take full responsibility for that. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Barnes. I recognize the DA.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, as we observe Child Protection Week, we are called upon to reflect deeply on the responsibility we all share as a society to protect the safety, dignity, and well-being of every child in South Africa. This week reminds us that children are our country's greatest treasure and its most vulnerable citizens. Yet far too many of our children continue to face realities that no child should ever endure: abuse, violence, neglect, hunger, bullying, exploitation, and poverty. These painful realities remind us that the protection of children cannot be confined to 1 week of awareness, but must remain a daily national commitment. As leaders and public servants, we cannot remain silent while children suffer. Child protection is not merely a social concern. It is a constitutional, moral, and national responsibility that demands action from families, communities, schools, law enforcement agencies, faith organizations, and government alike. Honorable Deputy Speaker, today I want to acknowledge and commend the important work being done by Member Kaiser Philander and the ad hoc committee, who continue to engage directly with communities, listening to their concerns, the concerns of families and children, and ensuring that these voices of vulnerable South Africans are heard and represented in this House. Their work reflects the kind of compassion and responsive leadership our country needs. Many children carry burdens far beyond their years, but they must always remember that their circumstances do not define their destiny. There is hope beyond hardship, and there are people committed to standing beside them, protecting them, and helping them realize their full potential. Child Protection Week must never become a symbolic exercise. The conversations we hold and the promises we make must translate into meaningful action, strong accountability, and real change in the lives of our children. Because when a nation protects its children, it protects its future. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. I recognize the Freedom Front Plus.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape still records the highest number of drug-related crimes of all our provinces. The Freedom Front Plus wishes to express its serious concern about the reports of even young children becoming drug and alcohol users. Speaker, we are concerned about grassroots reality and then reports, on the other hand, of programs where there are preventative and early detection programs available to address the problem, which begs the question, are these programs effective or not? And are they accessible to all communities and schools? Speaker, the Freedom Front Plus calls on parents to play their role in guiding their children. Substance abuse is a serious problem in the province, and it will require an all of government approach, including those of parents, to help us address this problem. The Substance Abuse Helpline is 0800 12 13 14 for those who need counseling while they are struggling to get into a rehab center for assistance. We also call for greater collaboration between the Education Department and Social Development Department to ensure that children have access to social workers at short notice and counseling services. The Western Cape can be governed better, but it will require greater collaboration between departments if we are going to save our children in the Western Cape. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Mare. I recognize Al Jamal.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "At-tuhuru shatrul iman." Cleanliness is half of faith. I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Brinkhuis. I recognize the ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP in the Western Cape notes with deep concern the growing challenge of malnutrition during the first 1,000 days of a child's life. This period is universally recognized as a critical and healthy growth, the brain development and long-term well-being of a child. Poor nutrition during pregnancy and early childhood can result in stunting, weakened immunity, developmental delays, and lifelong health complications. The HDP welcomes interventions from the provincial government aimed at addressing this crisis. Involvement focus on maternal healthcare support and breastfeeding promotion programs. Interventions include nutritional supplementation of clinics, feeding schemes, and early childhood development centers. Deputy Speaker, the HDP believes that every child deserves a healthy start to life and calls for strengthened partnerships between government, communities, faith-based organizations, and the private sector to protect the future of our children. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. I recognize the Good Party.
Deputy Speaker, I have no statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Heron. I recognize the DA.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, today I rise to congratulate Team Western Cape on their outstanding achievements of the 2026 Autumn Athletics National School Sport Championships. The Western Cape once again demonstrated excellence, determination and sporting talent on the national stage. Our learners with special educational needs team achieved an extraordinary milestone by being crowned national champions and securing first place overall. This is a remarkable achievement that reflects hard work of the athletes, coaches, educators and support staff who continue to uplift and empower learners through sport. Equally commendable is the performance of the mainstream athletics team, which secured second place overall nationally. Competing at this level requires discipline, resilience, and immense dedication, and every athlete who represented the Western Cape has made the province proud. A special congratulations must go to Lamisa Adamson from Mitchell's Plain, who stunned spectators in Pretoria by breaking the under-15 200-meter national record. This incredible accomplishment is an inspiration to young athletes across the province. Her achievement sends a powerful message to young people in communities across the Western Cape. The talent, hard work, and opportunity can open doors and create champions. To every athlete, coach, parent, and school involved, congratulations. You have flown the Western Cape flag high and reminded the country that this province continues to produce excellence. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van Minnen. Honorable members, in terms of Rule 145(6), I now give one or more members of the executive an opportunity to respond to member statements, but not for more than 5 minutes collectively. I see the Acting Premier.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you for this opportunity to make an executive statement on behalf of the Cabinet. The Western Cape is currently experiencing the impact of severe weather, including heavy rainfall and strong winds within the Garden Route, as earlier referred to. The most affected areas, there have been incidents of flooding, fallen trees, road closures, and disruptions to electricity in certain areas. Disaster management teams across all spheres of government are fully activated and are responding to the incidences as they are reported. I arrived last night from Johannesburg and immediately went to the Disaster Management Center, and I was there this morning together with Minister Andrew Murray. We can confirm, as has been mentioned earlier today, one fatality in the Knysna area where a tree fell onto a vehicle. Our thoughts are with the affected family during the difficult time, as expressed by Honourable Member Lont from the Executive. The question is, what is the government currently doing about this matter? Because this is a developing matter. The response is being coordinated through the Western Cape Provincial Disaster Management Centre and the various joint operation centres. This include a deployment of emergency and rescue teams, ongoing road and traffic management, humanitarian support for affected communities, continuous monitoring of the rivers, the dams and the weather systems. All response efforts are coordinated within municipalities and partner agencies. The Garden Route has been severely affected. This is the most significant impacts were in the Garden Route. Other areas, such as the Central Karoo, have reported damage to informal structures and displacement, while the Overberg and Cape Winelands remain on high alert. At this stage, evacuations have been implemented in high-risk areas, and I'm very pleased to report to this House that a family that was stuck in a farm 20 kilometers outside Beaufort West last night was trapped, heavy rains, they couldn't move and had to move to a higher area on the farm. I'm very thankful that they have been evacuated early this morning through our rescue services and our Department of Health. The question I always ask, what is our message from this cabinet to the residents? Our message is very clear: avoid flooded areas and low-lying areas, stay away from rivers, bridges, and unstable ground. Follow official government platforms for verified updates, adhere to strict instructions from the local law enforcement agencies and municipalities, because public safety remain the top priority. Well, some of the questions that we received during the course of the day, myself and Minister Murray, is the danger over? No, the risk does not end when the rain stops. Even after the rainfall subsides, hazards can remain, saturated ground can be weakened, tree roots and infrastructure which may lead to delayed incidents such as falling trees, damaged power lines and structural failures. I'm happy to report that some of these Eskom lines have subsequently been restored for electricity, specifically in the area of George and in Bito. All communications through the Joint Operations Center are there to ensure that proper information is verified, because we also have a stream that deals with verified communication. The obvious questions that we also get in terms of the humanitarian support, we have provided humanitarian assistance, for example, through temporary shelter, food and water, and blankets and essential supplies. The question is, what is the next 24 hours to 48 hours in stock for this government? The immediate focus is on preventing and protecting lives and ensuring public safety, supporting the affected communities, restoring critical services such as electricity and access to routes, ongoing monitoring of weather patterns and weather levels. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we have seen that the severity of this crisis was mainly in the Garden Route area. Hence, we agree that this is a matter of public importance. That's why tomorrow morning, the Minister and I was not planning to go there tomorrow morning. We've changed our plan because of the matter of public importance and severity. We are flying tomorrow to visit those particular affected areas, but we will first get the briefing by the Disaster Management Center in George.
Thank you, Honourable Acting Premier. That concludes member statements. We will proceed in terms of Rule 150. We now move to motions without notice. I would like to inform you that in terms of the Standing Rule 150 pertaining to motions without notice congratulatory were submitted to the Programming Authority prior to this plenary on 5 May 2026. Members are also reminded that motions without notice pertaining to congratulatory and condolences will not be allowed in this sitting that have not been processed by the Programming Authority. I have been informed members at the Programming Authority meeting on the 5th of May 2026, political parties submitted the names of honourable members in the desired order of speaking and who wished to move a motion without notice in this sitting. I will therefore, just for noting and for the purposes of the minutes, call out the honourable members whose names have accordingly been submitted and approved. The following members' motions have been approved by the Programming Authority and is as follows. The Honourable Masipa, 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 the Honourable Van Minnen, the Honourable Winvogel, the Honourable Kemfer, the Honourable Stoffel, Honourable Barnes, Honourable Lekker, Honourable Nkondlo, and Honourable Syed. I now put these motions duly submitted and approved by the Programming Authority to the House. Are there any objections? There's no objections. Agreed to. The motions will appear in the minutes of the proceedings and in Hansard in each individual member's name as if that member read it out aloud. I will now afford the opportunity for members to move motions without notice as per Standing Rule 153B. This could also include motions without notice that were not approved in the Programming Authority meeting. Members are reminded that the 30 minutes as per the Standing Rule 150 will start now, and I recognize the Honourable Lekker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House welcomes the launch of the third phase of the Regent Villas Extension 2 social housing project in Weltevreden Valley, a project by the National Government of Human Settlement with the Deputy Minister Thandi Mahambe-Hlala doing the official launch. Further, that the project has a total of 110 units consisting of bachelor to 3-bedroom flats, 70 outside parking bays, and communal facilities. It is well placed near work opportunities and to small and larger scale businesses in the area. I so move.
Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is no objection. Agreed to. I now recognize the Honourable Kemfer. I now recognize the Honourable Winvogel.
Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the ANC, I move without notice that the House welcomes the announcement of the recruitment drive by the Department of Health and Wellness, which includes 360 nurses, 124 doctors, and 80 emergency medical personnel. I so move.
Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is no objection. Agreed to. I recognize the Honourable Nkwensu.
Honourable Nkwensu. I move without notice that the House notes with concern that 35 members of the police in the Western Cape anti-gang unit are under criminal investigation, with 45 members facing internal disciplinary actions. We want a police service that is disciplined in protecting our communities. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is no objections. Agreed to. I recognize the Honourable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House welcomes the zero tariff policy that China has opened for African countries, including South Africa. Note the new policy offers South Africa the opportunity to export goods such as fruit, vegetables, wine, and other agricultural products to one of the world's largest consumer markets. I so move.
Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objection. Agreed to. I recognize the Honorable Kasim.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I rise to move without notice that the House notes the successful 4th African Youth Kung Fu Championship held at Fairbairn College in Cape Town from the 25th to the 26th of April 2026, and notes that the team from Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Malawi, Mozambique, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, and Zambia participated in the annual event. Also notes that the South African Chanwu Kung Fu, also fondly known as the Blitzfuss, won the championship with 16 gold medals. Further notes that the team Zimbabwe finished second place with 6 gold medals, with Zambia and Botswana tied for the third place with 3 medals each, and acknowledges the dedication of world champion Shifu Muhammad Junaid Shafika in organizing the annual championship, and further acknowledges Shifu Muhammad Junaid Shafika, also known as MJ Lee, who is a Hall of Fame inductee for his dedication in developing the sport in South Africa. And lastly, sends his warm regards to the Blitzfuss, and in particular, Coach Muhammad Junaid Shafika for flying the South African flag high. I so move. Thank you.
Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objections. Agreed to. I recognize the Honorable Bryant.
I hereby move that this House notes International Firefighters Day on the 4th of May and recognizes the bravery and dedication of the men and women on the front line of disaster response in the Western Cape. The House further notes that the Western Cape's disaster management centres remain among the best prepared in the country, enabling swift and coordinated responses to fires, floods, and other emergencies, and commends all our frontline workers for their continued service in keeping our communities safe. I hereby move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objections. Agreed to. I recognize the Honorable Professor Mbombo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes the agreement signed between the Cape Amalgamated Taxi Association, which is CATA, and the Congress of the Democratic Taxi Associations, CODETA, marking an important step towards ending taxi-related violence in the Western Cape. The House further notes that this agreement brings hope for safer, more reliable public transport for the millions of residents who depend on the minibus taxi industry daily, and commends all stakeholders working towards peace, stability, and safer communities. I so move. Thank you.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objections. Agreed to. I recognize the Honorable Johnson.
I move without notice that this House notes the decisive action taken by the DA-led Western Cape Education Department to protect learners during severe weather conditions in parts of the province. The House further notes that 125 schools in the Eden and Central Karoo education districts have been closed due to heavy rainfall and severe weather conditions in the area. Ensuring the safety of learners and educators remains the top priority. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's an objection. There's an objection. I've already noted. Are you rising on a point of order? I recognize you, member.
Thank you very much. I'm concerned by the fact that Honorable MSc Mackenzie has been quiet throughout the city. Is there something troubling him, perhaps?
Honorable members, we are drawing the end to the end of this particular parliamentary session. I have noted that there's an objection and the motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognize the Honorable Wessels.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that it has been 2 years since the George building collapse of the 6th of May 2024, which claimed 34 lives and left 28 people injured. Further notes that we remember every life lost, that every family member still grieving, and every survivor who continues to live with the consequences of this tragedy. Further notes that the Democratic Alliance call on the NPA to take decisive prosecutorial action following the completion of the SAPS investigation into the George building collapse. This was a disaster that should never have happened and must never be allowed to happen again. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objections. Agreed to. There's an objection. Honorable members, I'm going to pose the question. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognize the Honorable Masipa.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that this House welcomes the introduction of a private member's bill by the DA titled the Economic Inclusion for All Bill. This is a transformative policy designed to replace the failed and exclusionary framework of a broad-based Black economic empowerment. Notes that after decades, BBBEE has failed to uplift the majority of South Africans. Unemployment of Black majority has risen to 35.8% and nearly 30 million Black citizens still living in poverty. This is our brothers and sisters living in villages and townships such as Kailicha, Langa, Soweto, Guguletu, Heideveld, and so forth. Note that this happened while an estimated 1 trillion rands has been shifted to a politically connected elite few. Commends the Economic Inclusion for All bill for introducing a merit-based scorecard where value for money, including pricing, technical capability, and innovation, accounts for 80% of the criteria, ensuring that taxpayers' rents are protected and quality services are delivered. Acknowledges that the remaining 20% of the scorecard focuses on genuine economic inclusion, rewarding companies for measurable social impacts such as job creation, skills development, and poverty reduction, rather than a mere political ties or racial categorization. Further notes that this bill represents a fundamental shift towards justice by using poverty as a primary indicator of disadvantage, ensuring that empowerment finally reaches the unemployed and impoverished majority instead of an insider class. Extends the House support for this bold alternative that promotes shared prosperity and calls on all members of the Government of National Unity to champion this move toward an economy that is inclusive, fair, and based on dignity of all South Africans. I so move.
Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice?
We object.
There's an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I
Bill
recognize
of
the
the
Honorable
proxies
Wessels.
of capital and whiteness.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes the Department of Infrastructure Services and Opportunities Fair hosted in Elands Bay, aimed at bringing government services and economic opportunities closer to communities across the West Coast. Further notes that the Western Cape government's continued infrastructure investment in the region through the 26-27 budget, including 337.6 million for safer roads in Van Reinsdorp, Clover and Citrusdal, 87.1 million for the upgrading of public facilities, and 370.1 million for human settlements projects in Moorreesburg, Malmesbury and Klein Willem. Acknowledges that infrastructure investment remains a key driver for service delivery, economic growth, job creation, and improved living conditions for residents across the West Coast. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objections. Agreed. Mr. Honorable Professor Mbombo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to move without notice that this House notes the launch of the draft National Rail Master Plan for public comment by the National Department of Transport as a positive step towards the restoration and modernization of South Africa's rail network, including in the Western Cape. The House further notes the importance of a functional rail system in reducing transport costs, supporting economic growth and connecting residents to opportunities, and the need for inclusive public participation in shaping the final plan. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objections. Agreed to. Members, I'm going to post a question. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognize the Honorable Bryant.
I hereby move that this House recognizes June as National Environment Month, a critical period to reflect on our collective responsibility as custodians of the earth and to accelerate action against the dual threats of environmental degradation and climate change. That the House notes with grave concern the biological siege currently facing the Western Cape, where industrial-scale syndicates have stripped over 1 million seeds and 2.5 million indigenous plants from our landscape since 2018, driving several unique species towards functional extinction in the wild. Further notes the devastating impact of marine crime, with nearly 20,000 tons of abalone poached over the last 4 years, creating a treadmill of poverty that exploits vulnerable coastal communities and entrenches social decline through the influx of illicit drugs. Acknowledges the urgent need for a whole-of-government approach to protect our living infrastructure, utilizing advanced technologies such as drones and license plate recognition cameras to act as force multipliers for our overstretched enforcement units. Acknowledges that any increase in enforcement needs to be matched by an investment in our judicial systems, especially with dedicated prosecutors who can walk these cases through to completion. Further calls for the expansion of the biodiversity economy through aquaculture and sustainable farming projects to provide residents with legitimate, stable livelihoods that starve criminal syndicates of their workforce while building climate resilience. And lastly, resolves to strengthen the province's commitment to environmental protection and climate adaptation, ensuring that the Western Cape's world-renowned biodiversity is preserved as a functional asset for the dignity and prosperity of future generations. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objections. Agreed to. I recognize the Honorable Van Minnen.
Ek stel sonder kennisgewing voor dat die huis met verbasing kennis neem dat Gayton McKenzie 'n Engelse uitnodiging uitgestuur het wat gesê het, "Let's celebrate. The Department of Sports, Arts and Culture will be hosting celebrations of the Afrikaans language vir die viering van 100 jaar van Afrikaans as amptelike taal by die Oorlogsmuseum. Neem verder kennis van die ironie dat 'n viering vir Afrikaans hoofsaaklik in Engels bemark word, wat vrae laat ontstaan oor die minister se begrip van die belang van die taal en die kultuur daarachter. Erken dat Afrikaans 'n belangrike taal is, wat deur miljoene Suid-Afrikaners van verskillende gemeenskappe gepraat word, en dat die opregte erkenning en bevordering verdien. Spreek kommer uit dat die minister al hoe meer uitvoerig lyk met die gemeenskappe en kulture wat hy sê dat hy verteenwoordig. En doen 'n beroep op die Nasionale Departement van Sport, Kuns en Kultuur om taal en kultuurvereniging met respek, erns en sensitiwiteit aan te pak. Ek dank u.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognize the... Oh. As the secretary will end the meeting, and that concludes the business of the day. Thank you, honorable members.